Hello. Oh, can everyone hear me? Hello, hello, hello. So thank you for James just mentioned me. Yes, you will find me on his podcast in Emirates. But today we talk about something that everyone been asking me on. Okay, so the Chinese store has reopened. Where are they? Why am I not seeing them? Where are the spending? Why am I not seeing them still doing all this shopping at Dubai Mall? So I'm hoping just to give a little bit of a glimpse and the ideas of, well, what do they like now? How do we tap into them? What would excite them to come back to you and to the hotels? And how important it is in towards the technology, customer experience, and various other things. So just a little bit of a background about myself. Hong Kong Chinese, come from a Michelin star restaurant background, and now turn into everything fanatic of how to get more Chinese to the hotels, the restaurants, the Michelin star, etc., etc., etc. So we service across the GCC, from looking after the Kempinski Mall of Emirates to One Zabil and various others Michelin star restaurants such as 11 Woodfire, etc. Oh, great. So, just a few points. Chinese consumption is facing a crisis. We all seen the rates of the rooms. We've all seen the footfall of the rooms. They are still coming, but they have evolved, and they have evolved drastically. Now, we all say, okay, they're still staying at the usual places like the Atlantis, Burj Al Arab, and the Jumeiras, but where else? How else? So this is some of the figures that we say the Chinese are still traveling, but the way how they travel to the region is very different. The latest figure that we've seen from IATA is there are over 80 flights daily from different cities in China coming to the region. So they don't just go to Dubai. There is the new hub of going to Qatar. There is an insatiable amount of direct flights now fly out from direct cities from China to Riyadh and Jeddah. And we've seen even young families traveling to Riyadh. And I'm talking about young families being mums and dads bringing kids to Al Ula, for example, because we've seen all of those on the Chinese internet. And it's very interesting to see all this. And when we look at this is 59% of Chinese consumers said economy would rebound within the next 2-3 months. They are still spending, but they're spending now in a much more cautious way or in a much more digging in the value for money aspect. And the next question is, well, are we seeing them still buying all the luxury bags and the luxury goods? They are, but just not at our region. And there is a very interesting factor about this. Japanese yen has hit its all-time low. And if I am a Chinese consumer, comparing the flights of flying to Dubai for 4 hours to coming to the UAE of 7 hours, where do I go? That's the first point. Second point of all is the availability of goods. So this is where we're saying that the Chinese spending overseas has exceeded 2019, but it is not concentrated at one location and one area because of the movement of the global economy trends. So this is the latest figure that we have dug out from the UN WTO, and we can see that where are the Chinese traveling to? Is a very positive sign that Middle East is now 123%, which means the Chinese are back, and they're back with full force. And it's not only accountable for the leisure market, but are the MICE market. And that obviously highly driven by all the giga projects from what we just heard from Gidia and various others of NEOM. And this is a very positive sign, which means the more business transaction, the more you will see us coming in to the country. So what are the priorities? Obviously, after the 3 years of them not able to get out of the country, they had a small surge of revenge travel. But after that, it has kind of mellowed out because there has been various different safety concerns of the closer countries to China, such as the Thailand and various others that unfortunately have some not so great incident. So safety is still a paramount towards a Chinese consumer perspective. And safety is not only to do with the health, but also the ability to travel freely as a FIT. Food is a very, very big thing. And obviously experience. Experience is what are the things they have not tried new? What else can you excite them to come to your country? How else? So these are some of the new things that we've seen, a new trend, that shopping is no longer the number one thing we see among the Chinese travelers coming to the region. Dining is a huge aspect. And just stemming through of what Chef James said, because of all these new food and beverage accolades that we see around from Michelin, Gourmillot, and etc., the Chinese sees it. And for them, this is one of the barometer for them to say, okay, I'm in a new country. What are the new food to try? What are new trendy things to go for? And the next thing is the fun, the activity. Now, Dubai, we have the ones that we know what are the top attractions that the Chinese go for. Definitely the desert safari, the hot air balloon, and skydive. And skydive constantly being booked out. 2/3 of the demographic that goes on skydive are Chinese consumers, surprisingly. And then hotels. So how do we then try to push the hotels back up? Is a very interesting question. And also we're looking at the spending on more on the surface and less on the goods. So they're now really looking for what is the creature comfort that would really want them to enjoy the holiday? What will make a bit more lasting impression than just a purchase of a bag or a watch and etc. This is a latest figure by one of the Chinese travel site called Ma Fengwo. Is 78% of Chinese Gen Z would prioritize local dining, meaning-wise is finding the new treasure of that city. And 2/3 will increase their budget to enjoy good food while traveling. And this is staggering. Now, when we talk about good food while traveling, we need to bear in mind is not only what they consume on the spot. We need to consider the souvenirs. Chinese, we're known for buying souvenirs back home for our friends and families and loved ones. Food souvenir actually has a very high proportion of contribution towards the GDP of food spending to their traveling pocket, believe it or not. Flaky. So for those of you who don't really know what is the various different OTAs of Chinese, Fliggy is the subsidiary of Alibaba. And according to Fliggy, the Chinese domestic luxury hotel sector has a significant growth, and that is highly driven by the Chinese domestic travel market. Pre-COVID, during COVID till now, it has excelled over 150%. High-end hotels now accounting for 60% of the bookings. So for all of you in the rooms is, I'm sure we all know, amongst the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the Sheraton, the number of your sister properties in China is equivalent to MENA plus Europe almost in that extent. So they all know what type of hotels that they're staying in. And when they see the name, they will directly compare the Sheraton they've been in Shanghai against the Sheraton they have in Dubai. So they, as well as you, understand very well what are the metrics of what is a Sheraton? What do I expect when I stay in a Sheraton? What type of service will I expect in a Sheraton? What type of price point would I expect to stay in a Sheraton? So bear that in mind is that's when the Chinese get very outspoken on the Chinese TripAdvisor and various others, if they see the same name on the door in different region, gets a different par level of service against the price tag that they paid for. And they do seek the quality. This is why I said the comparative thinking they have is very, very important. So this is something that I use on a regular basis to try to explain, well, what do the Chinese travelers do? How do they, first of all, decide, well, which country they wanted to go? What will they want to do while they're in that country? How do they spend? So I call it, these are the circle of inception. So they will start going on to the various Chinese different social media platforms, from WeChat to the Chinese TikTok, which is called Douyin. And the little sign in the middle, red, or in Chinese call it 小红书, is the Chinese equivalent of Instagram. This is where they get the inspiration from to start looking at, well, where are the next place they wanted to travel to? What will they do in that next place? What will entice them to think, yes, I really want to start booking? So that's when they go to the next stage, which is the planning and looking at the different various Chinese OTAs, from Ctrip or Trip.com, as we all aware, and I'm sure a lot of you are having a lot of joy in fighting the revenue management side of how to manage that beast, to looking at Fliggy, and the last one is the Chinese TripAdvisor called 大众点评. And then after the planning, they start booking. And they will start posting a la minute during their trip on the pros, the cons, what they enjoy, and highlights. And they're very detailed. And I will show you later on. So that's when we say the experiencing and the sharing comes hand in hand. So they will start posting it almost like Instagram, you know, the Insta stories. And then afterward, they do a proper reel and a proper blog of their entire trip experience, just to tell you, well, how was that place? What did they enjoy? What was the pitfall? What are the things that you need to avoid? And they will be a very, very detailed. And this is just a little brief to give you an understanding on how the Chinese book, how much transaction goes through on the different platforms. This is some figures for your consideration. I let the numbers talk to you. I don't need to say a word. 180 million hotel-related articles is read on Chinese social prior of Chinese New Year. And that is just an average scorecard. And that is something that it will grow at least by another 20% year on year, as per the population of Chinese grows. The role of social media in travel. This is what we keep talking about is, well, how does it drive the booking? How do we want to see them coming through to you? This is all the different channels that we tell all our clients to. And I need to stress the point is, omni-channel is the only way forward. And not one size fit all. Everyone needs to find their own matrix of omni-channel that works for your brand and works for your target audience to maximize the exposure of your properties or your restaurant in order to drive the footfall on the fact of having the bums on seats and the bods on bed. And this is where we say, well, looking at all the different ideas, crafting the authentic local offering, social media, scaling with the right channel, creating seamless travel experience from digital savvy Chinese. They're very digital savvy. And someone just asking me earlier, well, Peggy, I don't have Chinese speaking front of house staff. What am I supposed to do? May I stress the point, and I apologize to every one of you out there, the Chinese speaking hospitality staff has all been stolen by luxury retail as well as property developers to go and sell something bigger, better, higher price tag. So no, you will not find them. Therefore, you need technology more than any time and anything else, because they do get paid very handsomely. And this is what we meant by the new breed of the Chinese young and independent. The screen on the right is a recent talk that I had the pleasure working with Unilever at Maldives, looking at dissecting the Maldives traveling. Because Maldives is one of those countries that has just at the start of this year started to offer visa-free travel to the Chinese national. And since then, they've had a floodgate of them. It's almost like when Dubai, we started having it back in 2016 when the UAE government said, okay, Chinese no need visa, and they literally come like mass migration. So this is what Maldives is experiencing at the moment. And how the role of social media played is phenomenal, because people literally would write such detailed blog posts in explaining, well, how much your pocket, how deep your pocket, where to stay, etc. And this is what I meant by the unprecedented level of detailing. They would literally write out, I did a trip of 9 days and 8 nights in Maldives, which resort I stayed at, how much I paid on the flight transfer, etc., of every single activities. It gives people a breakdown on completely which island, at what time, even whether it's monsoon or no monsoon. And people all go by all these social listening to make a decision on which resort they stay at, which restaurant they dine at, how to map their route of traveling. And this is where social media really takes into play. Then being is as I said, the Chinese TripAdvisor. Is also quite interesting to note the black thing on the right-hand side. Black Pearl is what us Chinese refer as to the Chinese version of Michelin star. They started to have it in likes of Thailand, Japan, South Korea. They're expanding it to Europe in Paris and Milan, of telling them where to dine. And as referring to what Chef James said, once you get an accolade, your booking go up at least by 25% without doubt. In the Chinese-speaking wise, it goes up by 35%. And these are what we look at. The user of the platforms is staggering. The average daily browser on these platforms, minimum 100 million user daily using it. And when you look at it, when you have so many people browsing, they're not only browsing internally of a domestic market, they're also browsing of the external market. And there are also people like us who live outside will still use these guys because they're so detailed. And this is what we meant by the hot list, is what are the recommendations, resources, planning, everything of this helps them to understand and realize where to go. So this is what we said, the different matrix. Where do you need to be in order to maximize your reach? Hopefully, these are the few platforms you will get to use. If you don't know how to use it, you're more than welcome to come and look for me and my team, and we'll be happy to help you to use it properly. And thank you.
Any questions? Any questions for Peggy? Yes. We have a question and we need the mic, please.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. My name is Anna, by the way. I was wondering what you feel is the age that Chinese people are more traveling now? Youngsters, middle-aged, elderly people?
It comes in different timing and a different trends. So for example, I'm sure all of you this year, when it was so-called the Golden Week, which was the China national holiday, everyone was expecting a tidal wave of Chinese, and it didn't happen. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that refers back to what I was saying about the Japanese yen. The Japanese this Golden Week have hit a record of 250% of Chinese because of closer flights, more flights availability, and easier, and the exchange rate give them more value for money. And this is what I meant by the Chinese travelers nowadays are more savvy in looking at value for money. Now, what we see of all the trends and all the prediction for the upcoming Chinese New Year, we will see the Chinese start traveling from the region of the 18th to the 22nd of January, because the main day is on the 29th. And this year will be very interesting because of the amount of MICE traveler coming to the region for various Saudi projects and various others. All of them trying to get the deal in before Ramadan. And the Chinese is like, right, okay, I'm going to do one stone, kill two birds. Let me come and talk business, bring the family over. I go talk business, they come play. So you will see a very interesting mix of eclectics this coming Chinese New Year.
Like pleasure or so?
Pardon me?
Like, for instance, pleasure, where they are.
So you will see a mix of leisure and mice. What I meant by that is, let's say the dad fly over to Saudi for business to talk. Leave the moms and the kiddos and the grandma, granddad staying around in Dubai and have fun for a week, and then he will come back to join for a couple of more days, and then they go back together. That's the most of a norm of the predicament. But bearing in mind is we also start, what I said, we start seeing families traveling with kids to go to Al-Ula, so they could break the trip. So we've seen a new trend where the stays of coming to UAE, before we could easily get at least 6 nights, 7 days out of them. Nowadays, you probably get about 4, and then they will do at least 1 or 2 nights in Abu Dhabi, and then they might do another 1 or 2 nights over in Saudi as well. So this is also the new trends we start seeing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other question?